Today, I'm going to teach you how to hold your pee. Hear me out. You're on a job, on a mobile job at someone's house far away, and they're not home, but you have to detail 2 cars, okay? You have no access to any bathroom anywhere. What do? Well, you summon your inner camel and you just hold it. I swear I'm like a friggin' desert tortoise, man. I can go a whole 10-hour day without using the bathroom and without drinking a drop of water. How do I do it? I have no idea. Is it healthy? Absolutely not. And also, guys, drink water. Don't be like me. Okay, drink water. It does make you more efficient, and it saves you time and saves you money. So what we're actually going to talk about today is dealing with the weather and with everything associated with being mobile. So we're going to talk about winters, we're going to talk about hot summers in terms of what you should bring with you in the van to help you survive in a long day detailing. You with me? Let me tell you, man, yesterday was crazy. It was May 6th or 7th. I don't even know what day it is. Yeah, May 7th was yesterday. And it was snowing on me. You cannot even imagine how annoying that is, being out on a mobile job in May and having it snow on you after you think you're already done with the winter. No way. It is so awful. So I had to kind of rebook the car that I was working on because of the snow. So we're going to talk about snow first and the winter, and then we're going to get into the summertime. The wintertime is definitely much harder than the summertime because one, you're going to be slower a little bit in your business, but also it is so much harder to detail in the cold than it is to detail in the heat. Detailing in the winter. First thing you need to know is that it's going to be very, very cold. You might kind of already assume this, but you really have to be mentally prepared for it and physically prepared. What's going to happen first is you're going to get out there and your hands are going to freeze and they're going to hurt so incredibly bad that you can't even move them. The trick is once you start moving your fingers, you kind of warm them back up, then they don't really get cold again. It's like getting over that weird hump where your fingers kind of hurt and then they're no longer cold. But I would definitely wear your normal waterproof shoes, you're in boots, get a waterproof coat, get some nice warm gloves. The biggest issues with the cold, I'm going to give you 3. Number 1, everything freezes. So your products in your van, if you leave them inside of your vehicle overnight when it's cold, it's going to freeze on you. The bottles are going to be rock solid. You're not going to be able to work the next day. I've had so many days where I've had to spend literally hours in the morning with heat gun and with a steamer just trying to thaw everything out so that I could go to my next appointment because I left water in my van overnight. So that's going to be the biggest thing. Number 2, you're not going to be able to do exteriors unless you can have hot water. And I'll give you 2 ways you can have hot water as a mobile detailer. But you're not going to be able to do exteriors. What's going to happen is even if you can somehow get liquid water in your tank, and I'm not talking about 40-degree California winters, man. I'm talking about 10-degree winters in Utah. Yes, you can still detail, but I'll show you how. Is if you have any kind of water in your van, it has to be fresh from the morning of, or you just have to keep a heater inside your van overnight. I had one light on fire in my van overnight and almost burned my van down. So you got to really be careful about that. But it can be done. So freezing exteriors you can't really do. If you're able to get a water bucket heater, then you can have hot water in a bucket. And what you're typically going to do in the wintertime is do a rinseless wash. So you're going to have hot water in a bucket where you can spray on a little bit of ONR as a rinseless wash and then kind of wipe that down and dry it while the panel is still warm. So you're going to be washing and drying the panel in one section. You're not going to be spraying off anything, and you're not going to really be able to get to the wheel wells and deep cleaning the wheels as much. You can communicate that with your customer, and they have to understand that, like, in the wintertime, and when it's really that cold, you're not going to be able to do a lot of exterior details. What I recommend is that people get a Quick Quack or a Tunnel Wash membership during the winter months. And before you go and say that's the worst thing you can ever do, realistically, for my business, most of the cars I do are not going to be $300,000 Lamborghinis with perfect paint, okay? We're doing everyday daily drivers, stuff that gets dirty and gets cleaned regularly. The reason they call me is because the cars get used and abused and dirty, right? So I'm not too worried about that. And obviously neither are they, because they already have these memberships anyway. So that's what I would recommend to most people who are really worried about that. For the cars that do need a little bit of special attention, if they do have a garage that you can work in, then you can do exteriors in the garage, assuming that none of your products freeze in your van overnight. Number 2 is I like to bring a 6-gallon jug with hot water from the morning of. So I actually took one of those blue, you can get the clear ones too at Walmart, but a 6-gallon jug of water. I fill it with the hottest water in the morning. And I took my jug and I wrapped it in a whole roll of tin foil. And then I wrapped that in saran wrap and then duct taped it. So it's kind of like a makeshift insulation, but it really works. I will be at the end of the day and I will still have hot water in my hot water jug. And even if I'm only planning to use a gallon of that 6 gallons, I'll fill it all the way up with piping hot water. That way it stays hot even longer. So that is really exciting. And the benefit also is that you're able to hug it when you're really cold. You can put your hands underneath it and hold on to it, and it warms up your fingers and keeps you toasty. I also do that with my generator in the wintertime. Is I'll just kind of like hug my generator without breathing in the fumes while I'm working, and every 20 minutes or so, just to kind of warm my hands up. So that's 2 ways. A third way you can work with hot water in the winter is if you have room in your trailer or in your van, you can install a tankless water heater, and you can do those electric or you can do those propane. And so those will basically, you have the pump from your tank through this tankless water heater that can heat it up as it goes through instantly, and then it comes out warm. That is kind of a niche product that most people aren't going to have, but I have seen them and they do look very, very cool. So I would you can think about that. Oh, and then number 4, I don't know, I'm going to forget the numbers, but I would also consider adding a little bit of that windshield wiper antifreeze stuff that's safe for cars. I would add a little bit of that into your water tank if you do have a water tank. That's just going to reduce the freezing temperature of your water so that when you are washing cars, it might not freeze on you. That's kind of just for detailers who have a mobile van with a water tank, but that's what you're going to run into. Another tip for the winters, you're going to want to preheat the cars before you get into them. This can mean just having the heater running while you're detailing. You're going to use a few bucks in gas, but as long as the customer is okay with that, you're going to be loving life with the seat heaters on and the hot air blasting in your face. You keep 3 doors closed at a time, so you're just working in the one, and it stays a little bit warmer. If you can keep the internal temperature above 40 degrees, then you're going to be doing pretty okay, and your product is not going to be freezing onto the panels. Another problem that you're going to be experiencing is, we talked about feeling cold, so that means just obviously dressing warm, wearing waterproof clothes. You can be cold or you can be wet, but you can't be both. If you get cold and wet, you're basically dead. So make sure you have something that you can do. I like to carry hand warmers in my pockets, and I also get the ones that I can kind of shove on my chest. And then I have an electric heated vest. This guy right here, this little power bank that I'm holding right here, I actually plug into my heated vest and it'll run it all day long. So it keeps me nice and toasty at my core. And that kind of allows me to stay working without the shivers and the shakes and all that. So next time you think that you guys are working in cold weather, and I'm talking about you guys in California saying it's freezing, or places where it doesn't actually get below freezing, I do not want to hear it, because I have detailed cars in 8 and 9 degree weather and got the job done. Was it miserable? Absolutely. So we talked about the products not working, or did we? So when you have detailing products, they are rated at a certain temperature. That temperature is going to greatly affect the efficacy of the product. Meaning, if you have an all-purpose cleaner that's really good at cleaning leather, I promise you, when it's 35 degrees, it is not going to be a good leather cleaner. You're going to wonder why all of your products absolutely suck, right? The degreasers aren't going to work. None of your products work. So, for example, my 3D Citrus APC doesn't work below like 45 degrees. I swear it is completely useless. It's basically like using water below 45 degrees. When it's hot, it works super well. There is a saying in the carpet cleaning industry, it's an acronym, CHAT, chat. And that is all the ways that cleaning happens. You have chemicals, heat, agitation, and time. So you have the chemicals, and a chemicals alone can clean something. But when you add heat, it can clean even better. If you had heat and agitation, it cleans even better. And then if you add the heat agitation for a long time, that is the very best cleaning capability of that product. So if you have chat, you can have each of those too. You can have just heat, right? Heat as in a steam cleaner. Well, technically water is still a chemical. It's still a solvent. Heat and water, steam, is really good at cleaning. Heat and time is really good at cleaning, assuming you have water as your solvent. And then heat, water, time, and agitation, even steam cleaning with a brush on it, you can clean stuff. Does that make sense? So when your product is really cold, it doesn't work nearly as well. How do you get around that? If there is one thing that you need to do for winter detailing, if you're even considering staying in business in the winter, is buying a good steam cleaner. And I would recommend one that is continuous fill, like the Chief 100. And you might be saying, whoa, Josh, that's $1,000 or that's $1,100. How do you even do that? Well, it's going to pay itself back in less than a week. And you're definitely going to hate life without one. So I would get a good steam cleaner, even a cheap steam cleaner if you're on a budget, but get a steam cleaner because you're not going to be able to work without it. You're going to be focusing mostly on interiors and using the steam and the chemical to detail those cars. So that is what I would do for the wintertime. All right, just to recap, get a steam cleaner. Make sure you don't leave any water in your van overnight so it freezes, otherwise you're done. And wear warm clothes. Hug your hot water bottle to keep warm, get a heated vest. And that is how I do it. I worked, 3 winters now in Utah. And I'm talking mobile, in people's driveways, in blizzards, doing the detailing. Man, it sucks, but you have to do what you have to do. A lot of people will go and find another job during the winter, but I found it was so much better in the spring if I could stick it through the winter and kind of have all of the traction from the whole winter leading up to the spring. So I didn't feel like I was starting fresh every single spring. Cool. With that out of the way, we're going to talk about summertime detailing, baby. It's summertime. You get the sunshine out. You're getting the sunburn or the suntan, hopefully. And things are going good. But everything has its drawbacks. Summertime, you're going to be dealing with water spots. You're going to be dealing with dehydration. You're going to be dealing with exhaustion, just to name a few. So let's talk about water spots. There are a bunch of products that you probably already know about, things that are super viral, like Formula 4 Spray Wax by Superior Products. A little bit of that diluted about 10 to 1, 20 to 1. You spray it all over the car after you're done foaming it up, and then you rinse it off. And then it gives you a little bit of dry time before water spots start to happen. And that allows you to dry the car off without having to buy deionized water. It's kind of like the poor man's deionizer tank. Speaking of deionizer tanks, I bought one, and I paid like $600 for it. The thing is sitting in my shop. I haven't touched it in like 2 years. So deionizer tanks, they take resin. They use resin, and those resins have positive and negative ions attached to them. And so when dirty water, or I'd say hard water, goes into the tank, the salt, calcium, and magnesium in the water, that's what's considered hard water, inorganic calcium and magnesium, is attracted to those positive and negative, the anions and cations in the resin. So it basically bonds to the resin, and what's left is just pure H2O. And so you take water that's really hard, full of minerals, and it softens it in a way that you can wash a car. It dries in direct sunlight, but it leaves absolutely zero residue. And so that is what you want when you are detailing cars, so that you don't have to be fighting water spots when it's 110 degrees outside. Hopefully that explanation was pretty good. I thought it was kind of scientific and stuff. But yeah, so when you use the deionizer tank, the only issue with it is that it costs a lot of money up front, and then also costs a lot of money to run it. Here in Utah, we have hard water of around 450 parts per million of just total dissolved solids. So that's 450 ppm worth of gunk. Hard is described as anything over like 120. So we are 4x what hard is. And so when we get water spots, we get them bad. They etch in. You have to use acids to dissolve it or polish to remove it. And it sucks. So there's a couple ways you can get around that. Obviously, chemically, like we already talked about, or you can use a water softener. I just barely bought a household water softener off of Facebook Marketplace for like $350. It takes, just using the salt and the resin in there, it takes the water from like 450 ppm down to like 15 ppm, which means I can take that water and then run that through the deionizer tank. And instead of the deionizer tank only lasting like 600 gallons before the resin is used up and I have to refill it, and it costs tons of money to refill it, it actually now lasts like 10,000 gallons or something ridiculous. So it took my average cost per wash from like $6 worth of resin down to like 25 cents. It's a huge cost savings, and it's actually worth using now, which is why the deionizer tank is in my shop and I haven't used it in years, is just because it's so expensive to use it, even though having DI water does save you about half an hour per job, in my opinion. So that's kind of the big thing with the summertime. If you can get a water softener, or if you have one at home, then run that water through a deionizer tank. You're going to get soft water in your water tank. You're going to be able to wash black cars all day long with no water spots. It's going to save you a ton of time and headache. Other thing, in the winter, get yourself a fat, chunky water bottle, like a gallon-sized water bottle, and throw some ice in there because you're going to get dehydrated. Detailing is not easy, okay? It's hard on your body. You sweat a lot. Your back starts to break out. You know what I mean. You've all been there, and I'm not the only one. And you're just sweating all day. I swear I lose like 15 pounds every summer. So make sure you're drinking lots of water. And then here's kind of a hack for you guys. Everyone gets those Gatorades, and those Gatorades have like 200 milligrams of sodium in them or something like that, 230 I think it is. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium are the electrolytes that you need for your body to be able to process the water, okay? You especially need them when you're sweating a lot, because a lot of that sodium, potassium, and magnesium gets extruded from your body as you sweat. When you sweat, you lose that, and your body can no longer regulate electricity in your brain. That is literally what the salt does, is it regulates the neurons and electricity in your brain, and you start to get fatigued, you start to wear out, and that causes a lot of problems. Now, these Gatorades, they do get kind of pricey if you're drinking lots of them every day, but they have the sodium, potassium, and magnesium. What I recommend is you drink a lot of plain water, but also take one Gatorade and add a pinch of salt. If you add like a quarter teaspoon or half teaspoon of salt into your Gatorade, it's barely going to taste any different, and you're going to get 5x the amount of sodium in that drink, which means you're going to get the same electrolytes as 5 Gatorades, but in one drink, okay? Saves you money, increases your brain cognitive abilities, something like that. And you can save a little bit of money on the Gatorades. But yeah, drink lots of water. Bring a little baggie of salt with you, and just, if you ever get really tired or you're feeling really groggy, just have a little bit of salt, okay? You don't need caffeine. You just need a little pinch of salt, and you'll be good to go. Other thing with the summertime, I don't have my hat in here, but I have this cool little wide brim hat. I would get one of those. It kind of keeps the sun off the back of your neck. If you're ginger like me and you burn really bad, like Irish, then you're definitely going to want to use that, and some sunscreen on your face. So I also really like these long sleeve shirts. I'll show you here if you're watching it on the video. They're these like super thin, breathable long sleeve shirts, and they have a collar, so they look kind of nice, and you can put your logo on them, and they're super comfy and stretchy, but they also have sun blockers in them. And so my arms, I used to get really, really sunburned, but now I don't get sunburned at all because the sleeve comes down to my wrist, and then I'm wearing gloves on my hands. And then I have the wide brim hat and a little sunscreen, and I can work out all summer long without getting burned. If you get sunburned a lot, then you're just going to get tired and groggy all the time. So that's the other thing with the summertime. So we just talked about the wintertime. We just talked about the summertime. I think we might have to call it for today's episode. But in the next episode, I'm going to talk about everything I bring with me in my van, things that I do not leave home without ever. Cool. See you there.